Hello, welcome to Life Matters. I'm your host, Brendan O'Connell. Well, today we have a crosstown rival of the University of Southern California. She went to the University of California at Los Angeles, UCLA, and she's been very entrepreneurial in her pro-life efforts for the last, I don't know how many years, but let me just read you a couple of pieces in her background. She's a recent graduate of UCLA and has dedicated herself to building a culture of life and ending abortion. At age 15, Lila founded Live Action, a pro-life nonprofit which specializes in investigative journalism, media, and youth education. Live Action works to expose abuses of the abortion industry and advocates for human rights of the preborn, using media to educate and mobilize both local and national audiences. Live Action also hosts leading social media presence of the pro-life movement. Lila currently serves as president. You might know her from her numerous undercover investigations exposing the corruption and illegal activity at Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest abortion chain. Her work has documented rampant sexual abuse cover-up, racism, medical misinformation, and the willingness to assist sex traffickers and false statements made by Planned Parenthood executives. As a freshman at UCLA, she founded the pro-life student magazine, The Advocate. The Advocate is now the largest pro-life student publication in the country, distributed to over 300 high schools and college campuses with a circulation of over 200,000. Well, welcome, Lila Rose.
Thanks, Brendan, for having me on.
Lila, today we were going to look at the issue, and it's been spoken about on this show somewhat, but it has to do with sex selection. How did this come up or come onto your radar screen, sex selection? What is sex selection for our audience, and could you delve into that a little bit?
Absolutely. Well, right now we're missing over 100 million little girls in the world today, in countries all over the world, which has led to huge gender imbalances where there's more boys than girls, which leads to economic problems, which leads to huge social problems, spurs on sex trafficking, and so many other horrible things. And this is a problem not only in India and China and places like that in Asia, but it's also a problem here in the United States. And even in some parts of our country, like my hometown of San Jose, California, the Bay Area, some of the gender imbalances, so there's more boys than girls, are even more severe among some populations there than they are in China, in mainland China. So we're seeing this huge problem, and what Live Action began to investigate was the roots of the problem. We discovered that early on, some of the same architects behind Planned Parenthood, the nation's biggest abortion chain, were sending out sex-selective technologies to India and beyond to encourage India and other countries to use sex-selective abortion so that they could determine the gender and then they could target little girls for abortion, so that this way they could curb population and make populations smaller, because if there's less women, they can have less children. And this is sadly what's happening in the United States today. And you know, Planned Parenthood and the whole abortion industry, they claim to be pro-women. And the whole pro-choice, supposedly pro-choice movement claims to be about women and protecting the rights of women. But instead, abortion has become a lethal tool to use against millions of little women in the womb across the world every year and in the United States. So there's some background for you. And what Live Action did, Brendan, is we went undercover in the United States, in numerous states, to do a gender-side investigation. And we had actors posing as women seeking sex-selective abortions, which are usually in the late term. So this is after the gender has been determined. This is when the baby is maybe 20 weeks old, totally, fully developed. It just needs to get bigger. The little arms, legs, all the internal organs. This baby is, sometimes as early as 23 weeks could survive after being born. And these children, these little girls, after they're seen to be girls, they confirm the sex of the baby on the ultrasound, but they're then targeted for abortion. And so our investigators, posing as these women seeking sex-selective abortions, went into Planned Parenthood. And Planned Parenthood worked with our investigators to do these sex-selective abortions, saying that that the stigma didn't matter, that it, even though people may look down on it, it was their right, they could do it, helping find ways to do it, even admitting that this would be a late-term abortion, even saying that they could find ways to get their state to health care to pay for part of the process. And all of this was done in the name of choice, when really what was happening is a violent form of sexism that is destroying nations, like it's hurting China and India, and is destroying the lives of millions of little girls.
Uh-huh. Well, Lila, I think what I'd like to do now is show a video clip. Now, you've been in different parts of the United States, I noticed when I went onto your website, but we have one down in Texas. And if you could please show that particular clip at this time.
Over 100 million girls are missing today. These girls were victims of female gendercide, the targeting of females for extermination through infanticide, and most often the aborting of preborn girls just because they are girls. The Economist reports, the destruction is worst in China but has spread far beyond. Even sections of America's population have distorted sex ratios. Gendercide exists on almost every continent. If experts are right and gendercide is taking place in our own backyard, what is being done to protect our girls from the most brutal form of discrimination, violent, sex-selective abortion? In April 2012, Live Action investigated abortion clinics nationwide to discover what would happen when the clinic receives a blatant request for a sex-selective abortion of a baby girl. In the footage you are about to see, Live Action went undercover at Planned Parenthood in Austin, Texas.
Have a seat here. So, yes, you're pregnant.
Okay, that's what I thought, yeah.
And so, what are you leaning more towards? I see that you say that you want to terminate if it's a girl, so are you just wanting to continue the pregnancy in the meantime, or what?
Yeah, I think that would be the plan.
The abortion covers you up until 23 weeks.
Okay.
So it's a little over 5 months. Little.
Okay.
And usually at 5 months is usually when they detect, whether or not it's a boy or girl.
I see.
So you would be like right Sometimes
there.
they can tell at 4. I mean, I've seen that happen, but it just depends.
Depends.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think I should go and just ask for an ultrasound and just not tell them that I'm going to terminate if it's a girl? Or I just feel like there's been some judgment for my...
I mean, to be honest with you, I would probably think so, just because, I mean, we've had even clinicians, regular doctors that actually have even told women, you can't go and terminate after your 16 weeks, which is not true, but, a lot of doctors, they'll place judgment because of the fact that the brain is already developed, pretty much everything's already developed.
Yeah.
The brain is already developed, pretty much everything's already developed.
Yeah.
And then for you to go and terminate, usually we tell them, you don't actually have to say what you're going to go do. I have actually applied for Medicaid, got on Medicaid as if I was going to continue my pregnancy. Went through the OBGYN, and then me and my husband decided we're going to go ahead and terminate. We terminated, and I still stayed on Medicaid and just got on birth control. Right after I got on birth control, then I just stopped using it.
Right.
I didn't even want it anymore.
I didn't use it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, so then I could, then we could probably, you're thinking like if we did that, we could probably get pregnant again soon after.
Oh yeah,
that.
I've had 2 abortions and I have 4 kids.
Okay, so all right.
So I mean, again, from experience, no,
Okay.
there's nothing wrong with getting pregnant immediately
Okay.
right afterwards.
All right. Okay. So these providers would be at least more open to me terminating. But do you think I still just shouldn't worry about telling them that I would be terminating if it's a girl? Just kind of just keep it quiet and then come here.
Yeah, I would. I would probably, because more than likely they could even refuse to continue to see you if you're just going to terminate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I see.
This is what you could take. Are you wanting to possibly get on pregnancy Medicaid to see if you can get like a...
Yeah, I'd like to try that out.
So I'm going to give you this too as well. This is what you would take to the Medicaid office. This is basically just proof of pregnancy.
Oh, good. Thank you. So then I'd want to try to schedule an ultrasound with an OB around then, and then I would still be able to come back here for a termination if it was a girl. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, if you go and see an OBGYN, pretty soon, and you do an ultrasound to see exactly how far along you are, then you can really detect, okay, this is how far along I am, this is when I need to,
yeah.
This is when I need, when I'll know whether or not it's a boy or girl.
Gotcha. Okay.
So again, you will be like 20 weeks. That's 5 months.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Okay.
That is really helpful. Thank you for understanding.
You're welcome.
I was worried that I would get judgment for terminating because of the gender, and you've been so...
No. I'm just trying to, help you as much as possible. So
thank you.
Some things you probably can't be too open because there are people out there that'll place judgment.
Yeah.
And then whenever it does happen, it's like you could tell them one thing, but then they might even just think another.
That's
what matters is that you have your family.
Yes, my boy and my girl.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
So just continue and try again. Okay,
all right. So I will call you back, and obviously, if it's a girl, I'll call you back, and
right.
If not, then...
And I'll give you let me give you our card too,
Thank
just so you can have. Actually, I forgot the numbers right here.
Oh, okay.
That you call.
Great.
Okay.
All right.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
And I hope that you do get your boy.
Thank you.
And I hope that you do get your boy.
Thank you.
And I hope that you do get your boy.
To learn more about what you can do to protect our girls, join us at protectourgirls.com.
Well, now, Lila, there's many different things. I see somewhat subtly, they don't overtly say it all the time that they'll do sex selection per se. How does it come across to you?
Well, it's very important to watch this video. You can go online at liveaction.org to see it. Sometimes I don't know if you're watching what she's saying, but she's basically telling this actor who's seeking a sex-selective abortion that she can use Texas Medicaid to pay for the ultrasound to confirm the gender of her baby. And then once she knows that it's a little girl, she can come to Planned Parenthood for a late-term abortion. She tells her they do abortions for 24 weeks. And she can come back to Planned Parenthood and schedule the abortion after the state of Medicaid has paid for that ultrasound. And then she can make sure that she has the opportunity to have a boy instead of a girl, and she ends the conversation by saying, "I hope you get your boy." So this was just, a sample of the callousness of Planned Parenthood and of this clinician to this unborn child, and particularly to this unborn child, just because it's a little girl. And for an organization that claims to be pro-women, and they're facilitating the killing of little girls just because they're girls. It goes against the very thing that they claim to stand for.
Well, it's really alarming, and I think most of America has no idea that there's a significant amount of sex selection going on. Now, you had gone into other clinics. Did most of the clinics that you went into with these undercover actresses, did you find this to be the case also?
Absolutely. The willingness to facilitate sex-selective abortions was across the board. And even in the state of Arizona, when we went undercover, there's a law. Arizona is one of the few states that has a law that bans sex-selective abortion. But in Arizona, again, our investigators said they wanted to have an abortion just because it was a little girl. And the clinicians at those abortion clinics said that they would basically break the law to give a secret sex-selective abortion that's against the law, just so that this little girl, could be aborted and the woman could have a boy instead. So that's just an example of how far they're willing to go, even willing to break the law to do sex-selective abortions.
Wow, that's something. Well, is there a way that I guess the first action is what you're doing, is exposing this issue to the general public, and we appreciate that greatly that you're doing this. And what is the next step? Do we take action, legal action against these abortion clinics such as Planned Parenthood? Is that the next step, or what is the next step as you see it?
Absolutely. Well, there's several steps. I mean, first of all, the abortion industry in the United States is very powerful. Planned Parenthood receives almost $500 million from the government, and they're active in our school systems doing sexual and miseducation for our young children, which ultimately gets them into sexual behaviors and addictions that lead to abortion decisions, so they go right back to the Planned Parenthood for an abortion. And all of this is part of a plan to an ideology that disrespects human life, that doesn't see the human person holistically, that sees the unborn child as discardable, as something that you can tear apart and you can destroy, and seeing the child, instead of looking at the dignity of a little boy or little girl's sexuality, sees sexuality as a plumbing problem, and children as, with that lacking all self-control, who are going to put themselves in situations of abortion, and then this little girl who's pregnant becomes a plumbing problem where, okay, well, we'll just provide this abortion. So all of this is interconnected, and the number one role that we play at Live Action is to communicate this to the public and to expose it. And we need your help in doing this. I mean, if you go to our website, there's action items for you. One of the first action items is to share our material, to connect with us online, via email, on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We're on all of these. And to start sharing this material with students, with your family, with friends, with coworkers, with your church. We have ways to do that online. We have a free magazine that you can subscribe to. We will send you as many copies as you want to share it with people in your community, particularly if you're a high school or college student. So there's a lot of different ways to get involved. And this is a movement for everyone, because human life is at stake every day. Over 3,000 children are killed by abortion in our country every day. And it's up to us to see this for what it is and to respond to this crisis, and to not be afraid, but instead to get out there and be willing to speak out on behalf of the most fundamental human rights for the unborn child.
Lila, I've over the years that I've done this show, I've come to realize, and it's been confirmed by David Reardon and other people that do studies like Priscilla Coleman and Martha Shuping, that coercion, up to 64% of all abortions are coerced, either subtly or overtly. Is this another instance where coercion, the woman can be, coerced into having an abortion by her husband or her boyfriend, or on a sex selection issue?
That's a great question, Brendan, and you're absolutely right. Many sex-selective abortions involve coercion, because and in India you hear these horrible stories of women who are basically tied to a tree and beaten because they wouldn't abort their little girl once the family, the mother-in-law or the husband finds out it's a girl. And, girls are being targeted, in the United States and beyond, because they're girls, because they're not seen as valuable as boys. And often there's coercion involved for those women. So that's certainly part of the problem here. And then beyond that, coercion involves in many abortions. Most women who have abortions say that they wish they didn't have to have it. And many women talk about feeling pressured by boyfriends or significant others, or even husbands or family members, to have abortions. So this whole lie that abortion is somehow a woman's choice and it somehow empowers women, it's a direct lie against what the truth is, which is that abortion hurts women and it turns them against themselves. And it's never because a woman says, oh, this is good for me, this is a decision that will empower me. No, abortion hurts women and turns them against themselves.
Mm-hmm. And I noticed on your website you have some other areas that you've been involved in. I guess this year the sex selection aspects have come up, but tell us a little bit about, because I think it dovetails in, sex trafficking. How does that, what is that, and how would that dovetail, say, into a sex selection?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, One of the huge problems we've discovered in the last several years is that the abortion industry has become a partner for sexual predators. And little girls who become pregnant, and in our country there's hundreds of thousands of victims of sexual trafficking that are young girls that are being sexually trafficked, sold for sex. And when these little girls get pregnant, they're taken by the sex trafficker to an abortionist, or they're sent under threat to an abortion clinic, so that they can continue their work and not be pregnant any longer. And this is just another aspect to the evil of abortion and how it's being used to perpetuate violence and abuse against women.
And so that would be, say, a pimp, let's say, or now what about someone who commits rape or incest? Would they be considered sex traffickers also?
They'd be considered sexual abusers, and the abuse that they perpetrate on their victims, if an abortion clinic or anyone, a health professional, a teacher, becomes aware or even suspects sexual abuse, they're required to immediately report that, Brendan, to the police. And what our investigations over the years have demonstrated, we've gone undercover, posing as sexual abuse victims, posing as, different scenarios, and we've seen again and again the abortion clinics saying that they'll cover up the abuse, that they'll lie about the age of the abuser, that they won't make the abuse report, that they'll give the little girls a secret abortion and send them on their way with a bag of condoms back to the sexual predator. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg about what's happening at these clinics. And then we also did an investigation recently posing as sexual traffickers to see if the clinics work closely with traffickers. And we discovered at 7 different Planned Parenthood clinics that Planned Parenthood was willing to make deals and facilitate the sexual trafficking of little girls by giving them a secret birth control and abortion.
Wow, that's really something. Gee. Now, you also had a category called medical misinformation. What is that all about?
Well, one of the sad tragedies of abortion and the abortion industry and the injustices is the lies that are told every day. And women are being lied to repeatedly about the risks of abortion. And we've documented through one of our investigations how misinformation is just being given to women directly. They're being told that the fetal heartbeat doesn't start until 10 weeks or 15 weeks or just before the baby is born. And we know that the heart starts beating at only 3 to 4 weeks. As early as 21 days, the heart starts beating. But the abortion clinics are lying to women and giving them outright ridiculous misinformation. They're saying that there's no risk to abortion. They're saying that abortion is safer than having a baby. They're saying, and that's a misleading statistic. They're saying that there's no risks, and not even mentioning the risk of hurting the woman's future fertility and other things. So there's all kinds of misinformation that this industry, this large, wealthy, government-supported industry is telling women.
Wow, I've had on here shortly after she lost her daughter, Eileen Smith, Laura Hope Smith went in to have an abortion unbeknownst to Eileen Smith, her mother, and got a call on her daughter's cell phone from her daughter's girlfriend saying that Laura Hope Smith wasn't breathing and she was at the Cape Cod Hospital. Well, it turns out she died on the abortion table. And it was
so heartbreaking.
It took about 6 or 8 weeks for the Cape Cod Times to even report that she had passed away.
So sad.
And these are some of the things that it just amazes me how little the quote-unquote mainstream media will cover the issue. Well, Lila, our time is up, sadly. I'm sure we could talk further and a lot longer about many of these items, and hopefully our paths will cross again in Washington, D.C. or elsewhere. We thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me on, Brendan.
And we hope you learned a lot today. You found our show to be unique, informative, content-rich, truthful, and thought-provoking. Thanks for watching. I'm Brendan O'Connell, your friend for life.